Professor Amarakeerthi. Good morning. I am extremely grateful that you agreed to come for my very first interview in my new channel, The In-Between Space or Atharamadiyava. And we first had this discussion in in Sinhala. And now we are going to have the same discussion in English simply because I want to tell the people who are watching this, I want to get them used to listening to English as well. Very often in Sri Lanka, these two worlds are a bit separate. We don't quite listen to the same thing in both languages. People in the Sinhala speaking world have separate discussions. People in the English speaking world have separate discussions. It is very rare that there is a bridge. People can cross over. So it is because of that that I created this channel, to see if the same content, the same discussions can be given in both languages. So that even if you don't understand English completely, you will still listen, because a bit by bit, you might understand 10 words at first, the next day maybe 20. You can gradually increase your vocabulary, you can gradually increase your familiarity with the language, and thereby try to learn it in a much easier way. So thank you for coming. And the reason I have you first is I wanted to ask you whether you could repeat the talk that you gave in at the book launch of my Grammar Through Literature. People were supposed to talk 20 minutes. I think you spoke about 1 hour, and it was amazing. None of us felt the 1 hour pass. I thought it was actually about 5 minutes, because you spoke so well and you told your story so well that we were all inspired. And unfortunately, I forgot to record that. So I called you here today to see whether you can tell us your journey of learning English, which started from a village with hardly any exposure to the language, and you ended up getting a PhD in the USA, writing your thesis, your doctoral thesis in English, right? And how that happened, because it's inspirational. It will help many people who are listening. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really delighted to be here in the program. And in terms of repeating that speech or the interview that I gave in Sinhala, I might not be able to follow the same order.
No problem.
But still I will have the story intact.
Yes.
Yeah, and look, in terms of learning and being inspired to learn English, growing up poor, rural in Sri Lanka, that when I kind of reflect on that past, it's quite amazing that how it really happened. Because, I didn't have anyone in my neighborhood, among my close relatives, who read in English even, but at certain point in my life, when I was a teenager, I discovered reading. That how I discovered reading is a kind of interesting story in itself. But I will tell you that this bit, where I got into reading English. That happened when I was reading Martin Wickramasinghe's autobiography, Upanda Sita. In that, first of all, in that book, he writes about his formal education. He was educated only up to grade 8, but he went on to become one of the greatest writers in Sinhala. And in addition to that, he wrote several books and articles in English. In that time, it's not perhaps surprising that he learned it, because he grew up in a kind of colonial rule, during the colonial times, and attending to English medium schools like Bona Vista. That's the school he attended to up to grade 8. It is a colonial school. Perhaps he had some foundation in English as a child. It's not surprising that he continued to read in English. I didn't have that kind of background at all. But I thought, look, if I read books in English, I could improve my English as well. That's what I thought. But then where to find books? Growing up poor and rural, working class family, you don't have books at your disposal. Now, by that time, since I had discovered reading in Sinhala, I had taken this membership of the public library, Vallava. This is little town in Kurunegala district. Now, if you go to Anuradhapura by train, you pass this little town. I often use this metaphor Malgudi to describe it. It's a little town where Sinhala, Muslim, Tamil people live together. That town had this public library, Vallava Public Library. It was so instrumental in developing or assisting my reading, even inspiring me to read things, because it has quite a large collection. After reading Martin Luther King's autobiography, I was looking around to find books in English to read. Some books I came across, they were like really, the English was difficult, adult books, adult novels, I couldn't understand them at all. Then I thought, look, I should read books, like children's books in English. Now, the Vallava Public Library had this little room. On the door, it said English section, or I think English section, or English Anshe in Sinhala. I don't exactly remember. And, in that room, you often find people from sort of middle class families, parents, children, hanging around in that room. That's a kind of intimidating sight for someone growing up poor, because like English speaking, rich families are there, right? I would like kind of like peek into the room, but wouldn't go there. One day this young librarian, female librarian, Muslim, I later learned that her name was Miss Manzoor. She one day kind of like detected that I was kind of, looking into this, this room. And he asked me, Puta and son, something. Then perhaps I might have told her that, look, I am interested in reading this. And, she asked me to read, suggested some children's books, simplified versions of Black Beauty, Christmas Carol. In English, you have these all kinds of simplified versions, because the original versions are really difficult for me. And she suggested those things. I borrowed them and tried to read them. It's not that I read them all the time. Growing up in a rural upbringing means like you have all kinds of work to attend. You go to the paddy field, take care of your cows, attend to some domestic chores and all kinds of things. But when I had time, I did read them. And sometimes I wrote down difficult words. That was kind of one of the beginnings. Then at the school, when I was doing my A levels, Vallava Central College, Vallava Madhya Mahavidyalaya, at that school, I met this wonderful Sinhala teacher, and his name is S. Dodangolle Gama. He was a friend of Simon Nawagatte Gama. That means he had this exposure to the world of art and all that. He was totally bilingual. He graduated from Anuradhapura Central or Mahava Central, one of those first generation central colleges where this where they had this bilingual education, even though they are rural schools, but they are taught bilingual. English education was so good. When he taught us Hunuate Katawa, the Caucasian chalk circle of Bertolt Brecht, he would often bring the English version of the play. And he would compare the Henry Jassen's translation with this English version. I hadn't seen it, English version at all. You cannot find it in that children's section of the public library. I thought this was fascinating. He would like translate back and forth. He would even sometimes criticize Henry Jassen's translation. Oh, this could have rendered better this way. He didn't do this to kind of show off his English knowledge. Perhaps he wanted to inspire us to perhaps learn better, improve our English. I don't know what he had in mind when he did, but as someone kind of like who had already been kind of inspired into reading English, I thought this was fascinating. It's not that I myself read the English version of the Caucasian chalk or the Hunuate Katawa. I didn't read it because I couldn't find it. Another kind of inspiring sight was our school principal, Mr. Herat, always dressed in this kind of immaculate white, wearing tie and all that. He would every day he would read daily news, sitting at the school library. We had a real good library there. When we had this library period, one hour per day or something, or 2 hours per week, or I don't remember. We would see this principal reading the English paper. He never asked us to read daily news. But that sight alone was inspiring enough for me to, oh my goodness, our principal is reading English. I must do too. That kind of background. So when you don't have that kind of background at home, when you have that at school, it's really important for children, actually, anyone. Then at the university, I was like a student, University of Colombo. Then this is after this JVP uprising, second uprising, 87, 89, after those tragic years. University was opened in 1990. We were the first batch. There we met, bunch of us together. I met some so-called English-speaking friends. I don't know, historically, because of the rebellion and the suppression of the rebellion, for some reason, English-speaking batchmates and Sinhala-speaking batchmates, we kind of like hung around together. We were together nearly all the time. It is not often the case now. I see at our universities, the Sinhala medium students are totally separated, especially Peradeniya, from English medium students. And Colombo, that was not the case those days. I don't know now. Now there I met Satyajit Maitwe. I was doing learning English, taking English as a subject. Indira Atapattu those days. Indira Atapattu, Nilika De Silva, she was a 2 years junior. But
I just want to add that those names are of very special people. So it's not, you were just incredibly lucky.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, of course. Yes. Yeah.
So I don't know either how it is now, but the particular people whose names you're using are of very, artistic, different.
That's right. That's true. That's
out of the box people. So it could be that you were incredibly lucky to have had batchmates like.
Yeah. Those are like, accidents in a life, lucky ones, lucky accidents. Then Madhubhashini Disanayake, she was studying in India. My Professor J.B. Disanayaka's daughter, that's you. You happened to be there in 1992 or 93, I guess, in Sri Lanka, and you regularly visited the University of Colombo.
I started my career as an instructor.
I see. Yeah, that's where. Okay, now you got to hear about us, writers and all that. You are interested in literature and all that. So I had published even my second book by that time as a university student. You wanted to write about Sinhala writing, and we kind of met. And then you realized that I was interested in learning English. You always encouraged me, and sometimes you would invite me to your home and have discussions about it. And we read, you asked me to read Animal Farm or something. Yeah, that's right. And discuss afterward. Unfortunately, I couldn't continue it, if we did continue that kind of discussion for like one year, whole year, that it would have improved my English greatly. But then I got the Fulbright fellow scholarship. I went to the US. Then I was nearly 30 years old. I hadn't written any academic paper or exam in English medium by the time I went there. So I was nearly 30. Then I was like among very young American students.
Even to face the Fulbright's call, the interview, right? Even to, have the guts to do that, that would have implied that you already had confidence in dealing with English. Because one of the reasons that I think the Fulbright seems inaccessible to people whose language is not very good, you completely proved that wrong. How were you confident enough to face that?
Okay, that's a good question. Yes. Look, by that time, for some reason, I was not all that afraid of speaking my broken English, especially in front of, say, foreign speakers of English. I was bit kind of hesitant to speak in the presence of middle-class English-speaking Sri Lankans. But the Fulbright interview, I thought, this is one of those points, like I have to face this. If I win it, I win it. Yeah. So I said whatever I had to say in English, in my broken English. Perhaps in the panel that particular day, there must have been some considerate people. But this is the point I made in my broken English. I said this: look, I am a Sinhala writer. I wanted to be a real good writer. I am in department of Sinhala. I wanted to be a real good scholar in this field. In order to do that, I need to get real quality postgraduate qualification elsewhere, outside of the country, in the US. If you help me to get this scholarship, it will be a help for my field, Sinhala literature. That kind of grand argument I made. I remember that. Perhaps it was convincing enough for them. Okay, now going back to how I did at the university, then I entered the University of Wisconsin as a Fulbright scholar. There, even though I hadn't written anything academic in English, I had to write like at least each course, several assignments every semester, usually 2 or 3. And then you need to, in American classrooms, you have to express your ideas in classroom. A lot of discussions take place. There, in the presence of those American students, I was not intimidated at all. I felt that my English was not enough. I felt that my vocabulary was not enough. but I tried to say what I felt. I still remember my first ever assignment in English. My professor, his name is Luis Madurera. After reading that, he gave me an A, but he had corrected nearly all sentences. And at the end, he wrote, uh, "You have great ideas, but I like nothing to see them clearly and elegantly expressed." Uh, I still have that assignment. It's handwritten comments of the professor there, because I thought it was one of those memorable moments trying to write your first ever assignment in English. Now, University of Wisconsin had real great second language, English as second language program. Uh, I I was required to take that first semester. I did really well, and then I didn't even have to take the second semester any second language courses. But I wanted to take. I registered myself for the second academic writing and academic English course. By the end of those 2 semesters, my English was all right, not great, all right. One thing, the during those both semesters, English as a second language course was taught by a Wisconsin poet named Steve Tim. Like now, imagine a poet teaching English to a foreign student who is passionate about literature. You know, one of those luckiest moments in my life. We are still friends after so many years. We email each other still. In one of my articles, I talk about him. Recently. Um, and then reading, of course. Then during my postgraduate years, like I took a lot of literature classes. For example, this course in one example would this course in South Asian literature in English. We had 15 hours to read for 15 weeks, right? Or 14 weeks roughly. Some novels like Fine Balance, 600 pages, Midnight Children, some 700 pages, then Glass Palace, what, 500 pages. I read all of them. I thought that, no, these are thick books. I had never read like this kind of big novels completely. I must take it upon myself to finish this. I did, you know. Then my vocabulary improved. Then I still read. I still read.
Very well, because yeah, those novels are tough on anyone.
Yeah.
You know that. So that tell me, when you come from a background that you said was not wealthy enough to afford books, right? And you library
Mhm.
actually deal with that very problem. Do you even at present that
Mhm.
system is in place for people in rural areas now without access to English to tap? Is it still available, or have the libraries also not developed enough, or have they gone downhill? But are those books still there? Are there new books coming in? Is that system still in place?
Uh, I think the system is still in place. Several times I visited this particular library, Vellava Public Library. I even dedicated one of my novels to that library. Therefore, I have visited several times after. I had seen no, I have seen students, young people hanging around in those libraries.
And the English books are still coming in.
Yes, I think English books are also there. I am not sure though. The idea of teenage literature, children's literature, has changed significantly over the years. Now, when you see How to Chase Your Dragon, all kinds of these new novels have come up, series, right? And then
because one, I'm going to interrupt you and just steer a little bit away from English learning, because youth literature, young adult literature, YA, is extremely popular in the English speaking world.
Yeah.
There are so many coming out, like from the Harry Potter series and all that. Whereas we don't have a simultaneous increase in the Sinhala literature.
No.
Right? So that's a different problem for a different discussion, that gap between children and adults. What is there in the middle? But do our libraries tap the YA into their village library system?
I don't think so. That I don't think so. Because for example, in this particular library, Vellava library, I don't think, if my son were to go to this particular library, he is very unlikely to find young adult novels that might interest him.
That's such a pity, because there's such enormous industry providing very, fantasy and, young love. It's really interesting for that age.
That's right.
And somehow, I don't know, I have not researched on that. But if our library system gets those books across to the rural library network, there's so much that can be done. From Ladybird to move up and to go there.
Say, for a Diary of a Wimpy Kid. All those books I am very, very sure that those books are not available there. It's still Black Beauty, it's still there.
People have moved, the children have moved, their life.
Yes.
So a bit like Sinhala, like even Sinhala, they still give up a gama. With no disrespect meant for that novel, right? But it might not be something that a young child might immediately get attracted to, with no disrespect meant for that. Right? So the youth, YA, is a huge lacuna, which we have in Sinhala literature because we don't have books. But in English, we do have books. But the question is whether we are actually getting them across to the library network.
I am pretty sure they are not available.
Yes, I fear not as well. That's a different discussion, right? But you mentioned your teachers as being the inspiration. That, they gave the seed of love for the books. But because I know your life story with regard to another research I did, I do know that your mother made a great impact on you. And one thing I will not forget is you saying, that you went into really like depths of poverty and she was weaving maybe maths. But she used to get the 4 siblings and have, these meetings like Samiti, where you had different activities like giving speeches. For to have a mother like that, I think is one crucial. Any one parent is enough to have, sparked a passion about language and literature. What do you think of that?
Oh yeah, but certainly. Like, thank you for reminding me of her. And we, like, by the time I was doing my O levels and A levels, our family, basically family economy was in ruins. Like, basically, like we were like having a lot of financial issues. But my mother was not from a really poor family. She's a family from kind of like rural landowning kind of family. In her family background, like she had some exposure to education. She was educated up to grade 11. That's the O level. That level in her generation, that's a kind of considerable education. And she knew that for her children's like future, education was so important. He always encouraged us to do better at schools. Not necessarily doing better in exams. She had this nearly every day. She had this samiti, at 4 of us would be like president or the compere. We switch those roles, and then someone would make a speech, someone would sing a song, recite a poem, and she would like prepare something for the next morning, like maybe food, weaving a mat or whatever. She she would like keep listening to our activities, those kind of extracurricular, co-curricular activities. Those were so instrumental in shaping my education and my sister's education. Um, all four of us won this oratory speech contest in Sinhala, not school level, the province level actually, uh, even essay contest. One time, one wonderful example, like the Vallava Central College had this a drama competition, 1988. Is the competition among houses. Usually houses are for this sport competition. This very inventive teachers had this drama competition among these houses. One is Gamunu, Vijaya, Parakum, three houses. Mm. And that competition uh, that year, 88, I won the first place for Gamunu house. My sister won the second place for Vijaya house. You know, there's a school with 3,000 some students. You know, two siblings from this poor family winning that competition, first and second place, both, you know, it has something special in it. And it has something to do with their upbringing. And that, I think that the role my mother played was so crucial. Uh, it's not that she was inspirational in my learning English. She didn't know any English for that. Um, um, but yes, those, you know, how to raise your children. At least one parent being conscious of raising kids in a way, you know, that would inspire them to do better in education or in life. Um, you know, it goes a long way.
That's why I find that story so inspirational.
Yeah.
Only took an idea, right? It only did not cost money for her to do it. It did not cost anything else but her desire and her insight into how to open a child's mind.
Mm.
So the reason I like that story is it's possible anywhere, right?
Oh, it is possible in.
If the adult or the mother or the father just opens that window in a child's mind to see what is available. So I find that story extremely inspirational. Okay, before I end this interview, Professor, I would like to ask you one thing. Now, from following what you said, it was books that really helped you in this journey to learn English. You read alone, you used libraries, and it was some friends, of course, spoke with you as well. But through literature and your love for language, you learned it so that you could write at some point. How did you overcome? You're also speaking very well. So, writing and reading are very quiet activities in which your ego doesn't get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I find as an ESL teacher in Sri Lanka is it's very difficult to get people to produce the language, speaking specifically, because we might have ridicule and laughter coming our way. How did you practice talking? How did you get over that fear?
Yeah, that's really important question. One, uh, you know, I always had that fear of speaking English in the presence of English speaking Sri Lankans. Mm, I said that earlier as well. That perhaps I thought that these people might laugh at my mistakes. I perhaps they don't um, they don't do that. Hmm? But I had the internalized this fear and this conception that they are to laugh at us. You know, English is something that's a kind of like separated something. You know, something theirs, not ours. ඒ වගේ අදහසක්. Something of that kind we had. Uh, at the university, I think Satyajit, Indira, then Nilika De Silva, then you, Madhubhashini, some others actually, Kumar Gunaratna. These people were so instrumental in getting me to speak English. Even you, I remember, you would ask me to read the Animal Farm, and then you would get me to speak about it, not write necessarily, speak about it, which I found at the beginning was very difficult, and sentences wouldn't form on in my mouth, and even if it did, it wouldn't come out, as sounds. It was difficult. And also I thought mostly in Sinhala and translated within myself into English. It took a while to do that, and then the influence of Sinhala syntax would get in the way, right? Very difficult. But at certain point, gradually, I began to think in English rather than thinking in Sinhala and translate it into, right? That, I think that transition, that complete transition into thinking in English happened in the US. Because it is a kind of sink or swim situation. I had to talk, and then I kept listening to, actually in the US, still I do listen to this NPR radio. That is a national public radio. It has always so interesting discussions about literature and all that.
In the US.
In the US, yes. In the US, I was used to listen to this radio, NPR. It's all, you can listen to it online. So inspiring programs about, yeah.
Now on
Yes. Time to time I listen to it. Yes, I have bookmarked NPR webpage on my computer. Especially discussions about books, I listen to. And I think that listening to a radio and also watching quite a bit of movies, a lot of movies, and then hanging around with American students, then I became comfortable in speaking it. Still, there are some places where, I would not be all that comfortable in forming sentences, certain structures that I couldn't immediately quickly, come up with. It doesn't matter. There are all kinds of ways of speaking, constructing sentences. Now, perhaps now I know the art of working with my limited linguistic resources. Therefore, I can say almost anything in English now.
I'm having a problem with your limited access, the fact that your vocabulary is limited. But, there is still a love of, I think you have it, hopefully I have it, people like Amina have it. We love words, and we know how much we are still on the journey. We have not come towards the end. And I know when I die, I'll still be learning.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I meant, because honestly, I don't think you're limited in any way. But
and another thing, Doctor, when you honestly love something, could be language, literature, anything. This is not like being fatal or anything. If you're honest about anything, things kind of tend to fall into place. This is is the case about learning English as well. And now the English, for example, the metaphorical quality of English, I always love it. And in addition to individual words, for example, now we can say, now this week, Christmas is just around the corner. When you say that, see the metaphorical beauty of it. It's like Christmas as a person appearing just around the corner.
Yes.
Right? Those kinds of constructions, I would think about it again and again and enjoy. Not necessarily to internalize them and being able to make them myself, but to see their beauty.
Exactly.
Right? That kind of it. Yeah.
And both of us are inheritors of an absolutely beautiful metaphorical language of Sinhala as well.
Yes.
Because English is unfamiliar, we see it quicker. You know,
Exactly. Yes, yes. Yeah.
realization.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, the passion for language, I think, helps in language learning.
Yeah, of course. Yes.
I would like to tell my students, you know, your story shows that once you love literature, once you love the language, journey becomes easier.
Easier. Yeah.
So that psychological barrier has to be crossed.
That's right.
A friend, this
Yeah.
is beautiful. Like, let's go together. That
Yeah.
kind of feeling.
Yeah.
So
Even like even writing, we both of us love writing. Even you, like, even like from the very early childhood, you love writing. When you write a sentence, it is like a form of dance. We enjoy being in the sentence. You know, when you finish it, you feel like you have achieved something memorable.
yes.
You know, learning language is like that.
Totally. And it's that love that I wanted you to come and speak about here. And that was beautifully expressed. So thank you, Professor Amarakeerthi. I won't speak long because it's a YouTube channel. I have to keep it short. And I think from what you said, the pure love of trying to, you know, that wasn't an easy language for you to access, but you did. And the love of literature carried you through. And then, you know, you showed that it's possible to have a PhD and, you know, become a speaker and a professor with just getting world knowledge also into you. So I thank you again very much. I'm very grateful you came and spoke about it, because this will be available for anyone to listen long after
thank you.
gone. So,
thank you. This is a kind of story that I like to share with other people.
Lovely.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time, and I'll see you sometime again. Bye.
Bye.